Thank you. I think the echoes. Is it still echoing? Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is the election of chairman. And I believe I have been nominated.
Yes, I'd like to propose.
Thank you very much.
Very happy to second.
Thank you. Disclosure of interests. Is there any, Kimberly? No. Item 3 is the Licensing Act 2003, an application review of a club premises certificate, Godalming Naval Club, 88 Mead Road, Godalming, Surrey, Q273HY. Summary of the application has been received for review of the club premises certificate from other persons in respect of the Godalming Naval Club, 88 Mead Road, Godalming. 12 responses to the review notice procedure have been received, 1 from a responsible authority in support of the review and 11 from other persons in support of the premises. A copy of the redacted application is attached to Annex 1. So, an introduction. The committee has met briefly immediately prior to this hearing to ensure that we are all familiar with the details of this application and to establish areas of uncertainty that will need further exploration. No predetermination has been taken place and the discussion was held in the presence of the Waverley Borough Council's lawyer and monitored by a Democratic Services Officer, Kimberly. So introduction, the licensing officer introduces the report and licensee and companion supportive presence. So could I hand over to you, please, Mr. Hughes?
Thank you, Chairman. You have in front of you an application to review an existing club premises certificate for the Naval Club, 88 Mead Road, Farncombe, Godalming, submitted by other persons. 1 representation from Environmental Health in its role as a responsible authority has been received in support of the application. There have been 11 letters of support for the premises from other persons. Officers request you consider the matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. I'd like to introduce the officers and subcommittee members. I am Councillor Jackie Keane. I am a councillor for Shottermill and Critchmere in Hazelmere. To my right.
Oh, to your right. I'm Councillor Joram Davidson from Hindhead in Hazelmere.
Kimberly.
Kimberly Soane, Democratic Services Officer and Clerk in the meeting.
Thank you.
And I'm Councillor Maxine Gale from Milford and Whitley Ward.
I'm Barnaby Yates. I'm a solicitor at Guildford Borough Council and acting today for Waverley.
Thank you. I'm Mr. Hughes. So if I start this side, please.
Richard Wood. I'm a resident adjacent to the Naval Club.
Thank you.
My name's Nick Clark. I'm the applicant, the primary applicant.
Thank you.
Holly Appleton, Senior Environmental Health Officer at Waverley.
Thank you.
Alice Clayton, Environmental Health Officer at Waverley.
Paul Hughes, Licensing Manager.
Katie Hipgrave, Licensing Enforcement Officer.
Larry Pelling, Interested Party.
Damien Cooper, Vice President, Naval Club. Mark Adams, Secretary, Naval Club.
Good morning, Mark O'Brien-O'Reilly, and I'm a barrister appearing on behalf of the Naval Club this afternoon.
Thank you very much. So the Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, the first gentleman on my right, I didn't get your name. Sorry. Were you part of the application or did you submit a representation at all? Sorry? He is part of the application. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the procedure, this hearing will be formal, but as relaxed as possible. And the questions the subcommittee will ask you must be proportionate and relevant to the matter under consideration and should not be unnecessarily intrusive. Under the Human Rights Act 2000, and these will apply, the council solicitor may intervene if the questioning exceeds reasonable limits. So I'd like to ask the licensee if there are any questions about the procedure.
Not from us, thank you, that's all very clear.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the licensee if he would like to make a statement.
Yes, if I may briefly, by way of opening, in respect of how we intend to present our case, I intend to call Mr. Mark Adams, who sits beside me, and ask him a number of questions. I'm entirely in your hands as when it's most helpful time, perhaps when we've heard from the applicant for review. But in summary, in respect of our opening statement, we say this is a case where the threshold for reviewing this license has not been met. Obviously, interested parties and the applicant have raised a number of questions and concerns, but we are quite confident that in addressing in our evidence today that those that can be shown to your satisfaction. So this is a case where it's appropriate to take no further action. Summary, that's all we want to say in opening in respect of our substantial case that will be advanced in evidence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So general questioning, the subcommittee and the chairman will ask the licensee questions about the report. The subcommittee may also ask officers if an explanation is needed. And if appropriate, the officers may also ask the licensee questions and the licensee can ask the subcommittee or officers any questions. So I think we're at the stage now where I can ask the members of the subcommittee if there is any questions that they would like to ask. Yeah.
Yes, Chair. I've just got one question, really. I see the bottle collection can cause some concern because bottles being collected by a contractor, and I believe the contractor comes at 5:30 in the morning, which you shook your head. I'm wondering, have you worked with the contractor to try and get a later time for collection? Because that is noisy. We all know about collections of rubbish and waste in the mornings. So I'd be interested to know how you've worked towards doing something about that.
Yes, if I can briefly, then I'll ask Mr. Mark to come in and answer that question in more detail. The licensee has taken steps to contact BIFA and to try and raise those concerns, and that is recorded in the environmental health report where it is said that that has taken place. So certainly in terms of trying to address those concerns, that has taken place. Obviously, in respect of an external contractor, the licensee is somewhat limited in what it can do. It can only ask and it can only make a request, but it has certainly attempted to do so. And my understanding, and I'm sure Mark will confirm this, is that generally collections do take place after 6 AM. There has been one or two incidents in which it appears collections may have taken place prior to that. But again, certainly outside the control of the club, and also something the club would be eager to ensure doesn't happen if it can. And that is why it has had those proactive discussions with the contractor. Anything you'd like to add, Mark?
Yes, I checked the CCTV, obviously, because it's 6 o'clock in the morning, so we're unaware. The first two I looked at was 6:30, and then I've sent these to Environment in a way of video. There was one at 5:30, but they actually came in, took the bin, didn't reverse the lorry and took the bin up the road somewhere. And there was another one, funny enough, I heard it last week at 5 to 6, because I live just up the road. But yeah, they are there and thereabouts. They have been just before 6, but we have contacted them. And I think Environment have contacted them as well. So again, we don't know when they're coming, obviously, because we're not there, and it is just once a week on a Wednesday, but it is very loud.
Carry on. I'm going to go over to the objector if they would like to make a statement.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. I've got prepared an opening statement I'd like to read as the applicant. We, the applicants, feel that as long-time residents, our kindness and support of the Naval Club's business during the unprecedented times of the COVID pandemic from early 2020 through to 2021 wherein they applied for a license review to support their struggling business with specific extraordinary measures of off-sales licensing and consumption, with extended seating outside during their operating hours, have now indeed passed. Instead of looking to scale back or even withdraw their operation to the earlier status quo of pre-COVID times, they have in fact grown their business during this period, as documented by increases in drinks deliveries and waste collection for drinks deliveries to nearly daily levels. In fact, they have confirmed their intention to develop the site, so attempting to normalise their current operation immediately outside of all of our homes. They have submitted a planning application to develop the site in March 2023, reference 00741, so have made an assumption that the current status quo is not only acceptable to all parties, but fully compliant with licensing and the regulatory framework. But as both the Naval Club and my neighbours can attest, we live on an active floodplain, actually classed as Zone 3 by the UK's Environment Agency, which carried out detailed modelling of the riverway in 2009 after we were all flooded here at Christmas a decade ago this winter. As such, we're not entitled to make any alterations to our homes or premises that change the flood risk profile for this site without prior consent from WBC planning framework, and we are also required to file a flood risk assessment. To our knowledge, this has never been done by the Naval Club. We simply state that we believe the current situation is unacceptable to the residents, and today ask the licensing committee to evaluate the situation from both sides in terms of the current specific operational license that is not working for us residents. WBC Environmental Health Organisation team acknowledges in the agenda pack that there is a problem at the site. They have proposed a solution. Let us together agree on a way forward. To be clear, we are not seeking to close down the Godalming Naval Club. The multiple letters of support for the Naval Club presented in the agenda pack clearly show their level of feeling. And indeed, they have a valued place in our community. But the balanced approach surely is not to allow their activities to project into our very homes to the daily detriment of the immediate neighbours and our neighbourhood as a whole, especially in light of the fact they may well become surrounded by overlooking residential neighbours on all four sides in the near future. We simply point out that their activities were previously held inside their club with great success and ask that they return to this format going forward to give us residents back some semblance of normality. On a personal note, the issues that have been ongoing since the 16th of April 2021, some 32 months and counting, have had a lasting real-world effect on my family, both my physical and mental health, with real-world consequences of long-term anxiety-based trauma and medical issues that require ongoing medical intervention. I have become reactionary and short-tempered, always nervous and feeling unsafe in my own home, and I don't want to feel this way anymore. The Naval Club's members' accusations that we defamed them in Annex 7, page 51 of the agenda pack, are baseless. On the advice of Mr. Hughes and WBC Licensing, we've made specific accusations supported by documentary evidence that we intend to present here today on request. We residents do not accept this current status quo. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, Kimberly, I believe we have some videos, which is the appropriate time to play them, I think. And these are, I'm sure you've all read in your packs, these are videos that have been taken and documented for us to see this morning.
He jumped into it. No, no. It's just unlucky timing. Unlucky timing, because that was going nowhere. And he got back up. Well, he got back up. Those three. What's open his eyes? Look, that man would have seen it happen. And he would have seen it happen before this is on me if this goes first. No, so he took his bed beforehand. But just trying to prove one
Thank you very much for your videos. I'd like to ask if you would like to respond to those videos and the statement made by gentlemen.
Yes, if I could briefly respond firstly to the opening statement, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Adams a couple of questions about those various videos, whilst also making a number of points myself. The first point to note in respect to the opening statement, in respect to the planning application that's referred to earlier this year, that is for a storage container, which is proposed to be placed in the garden. It's about 20 foot long. And one of the happy advantages of that is that it will be located between the tables in the garden and the applicant's fence, so thereby acting as a buffer of that noise. So that I would see that as a positive and welcome addition. In respect to the question of development and planning, of course, I don't need to tell you that planning matters are something that will be dealt with in a planning context, but I'm afraid I don't quite accept the suggestion that the placing of beer tables in a garden would in and of itself amount to development for which planning permission would be required. And I note that the planning officer, who is a responsible authority, has not made any suggestion to the contrary, and there's been no history, as I understand, of any enforcement action. So that is something I'd ask you to take into account. In respect to the videos, I'm going to ask Mr. Adams a couple of questions about individual videos, but if I can just ask you to note that the vast majority of those videos, the location in which they're taken is taken standing at the very end of the garden at the hedge. And obviously the closer one moves to the context of noise, of course, that is going to appear louder. But what I suggest is in the vast majority of those videos, what you see are conversations being held at ordinary levels. Of course, we hear the glass, and I'm going to ask Mr. Adams about that in a moment, and what mitigation measures have been taken into account. But the vast majority of those videos, I suggest, have been taken in a location in which the actual day-to-day impact on residents in a garden or in their home would not be the same as if somebody stands at the very end of a garden with video recording equipment. But if I can ask Mr. Adams a couple of questions. So in respect to those videos, since some of those videos have been taken, have you taken any mitigation measures?
Yes, certainly the first couple of videos was very loud. We used to have 5 tables in the garden. We worked with environment. We've removed 3 tables, all the ones closest to the fence, and just left 2 tables. Therefore, obviously reducing the amount of people in the garden. Obviously, the noise level. I'd like to know when those videos were taken, because it does seem quite loud. But we have taken measures to sort that since. You know, there's a limit to the garden now. I'm not sure if you've got pictures of the garden or as it is and as it was, but yes, the glass bottles, they've been moved. I mean, at the end of the day, that happened before the garden was there. We've always had the glass bottle collection. They were against the fence. We've moved them on the. I spoke to Mr. Clark and he said about the bins being against his fence. So we've moved them right away from the fence. So again, that did sound very close to the fence, but we have moved them since. In his opening statement, he said about the clubs become busier. We have 1 delivery on a Wednesday. Sorry, 1 collection on a Wednesday still. So I don't know how that's become busier of collections. And we have 1 delivery of beer each week as well. So how he knows we've become busier, I don't know. But yeah, that's. Do anything else?
If I could ask, for one of those videos, it was quite apparent the voices appear to be at a further distance. So in most of the videos, you could see quite clearly the conversation was taking place. But that video of a later incident, which seems to take place later in the evening, have you any comments to make on that video?
Yes, I've been waiting to hear that video. I heard it for the first time last week. That's clearly not in our property. It was a Tuesday night, 10:40. It's across the road. If you actually listen to it again, this voice is shouting very loudly, and it's across the road at the Leven Bottle, who regularly had problems. You may recall the Leven Bottle, but yeah, we had regular problems with those. Lots of fights outside, arguments, shouting, but certainly not in our property. There's none of that was in our property. If you listen to that video again and you listen properly, they're shouting very loudly, and it's not that loud. You know, if it was right next to the fence, you would know that was our property, but it wasn't our property.
And one final question responding.
Am I allowed to rebut that?
Yes, I'm grateful. And one final question about those videos. You pointed out to me in one of the videos, you could see a hose pipe in part of the video. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yes, for months and months now, Mr. Clark, as well as having his music very loud, which annoys all the other neighbours, he has a hose pipe that sprays water over at the people in the garden. And it's clearly for a reaction from our punters, but we've told everyone not to react. And a little while ago, one of our bar staff, Owen, was in the garden. There were 2 children in there, and Mr. Clark was spraying water across. And Owen did shout, "Come on, Nick, please don't do this. There's kids in the garden." And he carried on doing it. But not once did any of our customers kick off with him. You know, they were told not to. He was being petty, so we just let it go.
That was the final question I have about those videos. I do have some general questions, Mr. Adams, but I think perhaps the applicant wants to respond to those points now. I mean, I'm entirely in your hands as whether to ask the other questions now or to deal with us with the videos.
Okay, so I think we'll let Mr. Adams respond and then you can come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to respond firstly to the hose pipe. That's the first time ever hearing about it. I have installed a sprinkler system that actually weeps water all the way along the hedge line. This summer, I have been using a manual spray, but we do not have a relationship where people speak to me. So someone shouting at me over the fence, you know, someone shouting, "Hey Nick," whatever you've said that they were saying, there's no conversation between. So I wouldn't even know you're talking to me or they were talking to me. So if that has happened, I would accept that, because I've absolutely been keeping that hedge. I've been cultivating that for 16 years, been looking after it through thick and thin, and I have to water it, but I attempt not to. I'm not there to deliberately wet them. I'm there to manicure, look after the hedge to keep it healthy. Secondly, the argument, the late argument that's being heard, we would say that that was not from the leathern bottle. It's down the side alley between the entrance hallway to the Naval Club and Sweet Apple House. That's where that argument took place.
A yew hedge, I mean, I have a yew tree in my garden, and that is a mature yew hedge. It doesn't need watering. A hedge of that age doesn't need watering.
Thank you. Yes.
Also, I do a lot of gardening now. When do you water your plants? Mid-afternoon in the summer? Surely it's an evening or a morning job.
I think we'll probably come back to that one if you'd like to carry on.
Yes, without wishing to give horticultural evidence, the only point I was going to make is I could ask Mr. Adams, in respect to the suggestion there is no communication between you and Mr. Clark or any attempts to sort of address issues. Have you any comments to make about that?
Yes, I've met Mr. Clark several times. We've had nice chats, we've got on well. There's an email I've sent him, giving him my personal number. Any problems you get, Nick, just give me a call straight away.
And is there responses to that?
No, he didn't reply to that, no.
Thank you. Right, I think I'm going to ask my fellow committee if they'd like to ask any questions before I carry on. Councillor Gale?
Yeah, sorry. Just having a look through some bits and pieces here. So all of the video and the photographs were taken from your garden, yes? Okay. We don't seem to have, we do have dates, and the videos start in April 21. So it goes back quite a long way. Can I ask when the 2710 video was taken? I don't know which date it relates to here. That's the nighttime one, which I think you're saying was the leathern bottle. Does anyone know which date that refers to?
Yes.
Yes.
It says it's 5th of April 2023.
Was that 2022 or 2023?
Okay.
2022, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
I have it on my phone. It will tell me the actual date of recording.
Yeah, thank you. So that was at 10:30 in the evening. And that was, okay. It's just very difficult to understand when things are actually from the videos themselves.
It was 2022, my apologies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that was a while back. That was during sort of still shut down. One question I did have, COVID conditions, are they still in operation now, or has that all been removed from public?
No, there was the easement of off sales for any premises that had on sales of alcohol. They could have off sales automatically if they didn't have it. That easement's continued and still, I think it's till March 25 at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Can I ask when the tables in the garden were reduced down to 2 from 5?
August 22.
Sorry, not to interrupt that response, but if I could just make one additional point, just that might be helpful. Those tables have now been bolted down to ensure that they can't be moved any closer to the fence.
Yeah, I was just trying to relate it as to the videos that we've been listening to. So that happened in August 2022, yes? The tables were reduced down, so videos prior to that, there would have been more tables in the garden. Okay. And when did you move the glass bottles from near the fence line? When did that actually happen? Do we know?
I imagine around the same time. It would have been last year. I took over as secretary in the April of 22, and it wasn't long after that.
Okay, thank you. So the glass bottle collection noises we heard were prior to August 2022. So that should have actually calmed down from now.
No, the collections are always the same. They're on the Wednesday. They come and collect them themselves. It's the actual the noise when the bottle's going in were us putting the bottles in the bins, but that's never done. It's always sort of early afternoon or whatever. It's not in the mornings or late night.
Yes, sorry, I maybe I misunderstood. You said that the glass bottles were moved away from the fence line, which I took to being where you put your glass bottles, which is what I thought I could hear in the videos.
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, yeah, the bins were at the back of the garden, at the back of the car park against the fence, but we've now moved them out away from the fence, and that's where we put them in and where they're collected from. Whereas before they were against the fence.
Yes, which happened around the same time as the tables and chairs. What I was trying to establish was the video we heard, which had lots of glass bottles being put in and out of bins, was prior to you moving the bottle store that you're using.
I wouldn't know because I didn't take the video, so we'd need to know the date of that.
I think the glass bottle video that we were listening to could have possibly been around about May 2022, which would have been before you moved the tables and things. Okay, that was what my query was.
It's reported here, it's 29th of May, 22.
Yes, that's what I thought. So that was before the tables were moved and the bottles were moved away from the fence line, when we heard quite a lot of bottle disposal. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry, my earlier correction of the nighttime fight that we were being told it was 2022, it's not. It's definitely the 5th of April of this year, 22:39.
Thank you, Chair. One of Mr. Clark's contentions, if I recall from his earlier statement, was that there has been a change in the way that the garden has been used by the Naval Club from pre-COVID lockdown. Could you give me some background as to how the garden was used before lockdown, and subsequently, of course, we understand how it's subsequently emerged to greater usage?
Yes, before lockdown, the garden wasn't quite as big. We didn't have the garden area. We just had benches outside. But because of lockdown, we were only allowed to serve outside. So we put a small garden in the back, basically, where some car parking spaces were. So it has actually grown a little bit.
Yeah, so it's essentially you are all entirely indoors as a club. And it's only since the relaxation of usage following lockdown that the garden has been more extensively used.
No, we were outdoors as well. The tables were in different positions, but we still had tables outside. We were an outside club, but they were more in the car park. It's now a garden area rather than car parking spaces. So it just looks nicer.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you're saying that really the tables have been moved nearer to the hedge, would you say?
They were originally moved. We put some AstroTurf down to make the garden look prettier, and we've got some flower plots all around, planters. So yeah, we originally moved the tables, which were nearer to his fence, but obviously since then we've taken 3 of the tables away to put it back to basically to near enough what it was.
Okay. And would you say that, even though you've only got the 2 tables, you still have a lot of people gather outside?
No, we don't have a lot of people gather outside really. Certain occasions on a hot day, but generally, you know, if you were to come and look, a lot of them are elderly people. They're not. It's not a load of sort of yobs getting drunk, and it's generally afternoons. You know, our license says we can't drink outside after 9 o'clock, so everybody's in before 9 o'clock.
I was going to ask you something on that. Obviously, 9 o'clock is your cut-off time for outside drinking and socialising. Do you turn? You obviously have outside lighting. Do you turn that off at 9 o'clock?
No, we don't have outside lighting. We used to have, but it was shining across, and the neighbour said it's going into there. So we got rid of that a couple of years ago. In our alleyway, we got a smoking shed. We've got a light in there and down the alleyway, but nothing on the outside. So once it's dark, it's dark out there.
Okay. So so how do you deal with customers that are still outside after 9 o'clock? Do you encourage them to come into the club and make them aware that 9 o'clock outside is the cut-off time?
Yes, it was an awkward thing to police over the years since it came in, but now we got a warning a couple of 15 months ago for people drinking outside at 9:05 and 9:15. Very difficult for the bar staff. They would go out there at 9 o'clock. So now we got the whole club, you know, I've made it clear to every member that drinks in there, because it's quite a regular club, for everyone to police it, basically, because some people don't know it's 9:10 and they'll walk outside for a cigarette with their glass in their hand. So we've got every member now who does a really good job, you know, pointing out to people, mate, you can't take that out there. I've also got signs on the door saying no alcohol outside after 8:45. And I'd like to say that was 15 months ago that we, you know, got Mr. Hughes came down and looked at our CCTV, and we've not had any incident since. So it worked out rather well.
So your clientele are sort of policing that for you as well?
Yes, we made sure the members policed it, because it's very difficult for the bar staff if they're serving to know who anyone. But yeah, the members have done very, very well, and everyone's aware. You know, no one's doing it on purpose, but you do forget the time, and you know, and people go out there and make sure no one's out.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add, sorry,
Yes.
to do with lighting, because I'm an electrician, and we did change a light down the alleyway to an LED, which was brighter. One of the neighbours, I don't know which one, I don't think, because it was it shines a different direction. We then put a cowling over it within days, once a neighbour has asked us to do so. So we did it straight away.
And they were happy with that?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you. Going back to the you know, your sort of bottle sort of scenario where at the end of the evening you have to throw your bottles, you know,
No, it's never done at the end of the
never do
evening. It's
that.
always
Okay.
done during the day.
So really you're not disturbing anybody at all? Okay, fine, thank you.
If I could, sorry, Chair, there is a specific license condition that does deal already in the license with that. And if I could direct your attention to, apologies. But this, I think, ought to adequately reassure you that that is enforceable. Yes, so on page 39 of the bundle, you will see condition 2, no glass waste should be handled / disposed of outside the hours of 9:30 p.m.
Yes, we've got
and 8 o'clock, and that's already a condition on the license. And if I could also just ask you to make a note for your records in your deliberations, you will see on page 49, this goes to your question about the numbers of people outside, that Environmental Health undertook 2 Saturday evening visits, one on the 30th of September this year and one on the 7th of October. And what you see is that on the 30th of September, rather, from 7:10 to 7:25, there was one person outside smoking and then another person came outside. So in respect of numbers, we have that evidence there. And then also, similarly, there's a discussion of the 7th of October and small numbers. So I just ask you to make a note for your records.
I mean, basically, we're asking these questions for those that haven't had the bundle so that it can be made clear that, you know, we have read it, but maybe some haven't seen it. So now I have a question for Mr. Clark. The hose pipe. How far through the hedge do you extend the hose pipe? Because I mean, I'm a gardener, and I'm quite intrigued that the hose pipe appears to go through the hedge.
I do not. I have a rose. It's a rosary. So it roses, you plug it into the hose pipe, it automatically automates the water delivery at the root level. I also have one of these sprinklers, and you have, the hedge is now mature. I planted it 15 years ago, put 40 trees in. It's now around, it's quite high, but we try to work with the Naval Club to manage it from both sides. But in order to get the elevation, you have to stand back and angle if you want to wet the foliage in the late evening or the late afternoon of the summer months.
I usually do mine in the morning, which is interesting. Now, the Environmental Agency, do you have any issues?
Sorry, Chair, before we were talking about the garden and there being two tables out in the garden. I just wanted to clarify in the location, there are 5 tables, 2 are within the garden area, but there's an additional 3 tables that are out there and they're all occupied or can be all occupied. And I think that should be clarified.
Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, there are other tables a long way away from the garden, but when he says they're always occupied, clearly not, because Environmental Health came down and checked and they weren't occupied. Yes, there are another 3 which have always been there, but there's never that many people out there, to be fair. You get the occasions.
So in actual fact, you haven't got 2, you've got 5.
Not in the actual garden,
the
no.
garden, but you have
This
got
was all
5.
about the garden area. That's why we haven't gone into that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to ask the Environmental Agency, the flooding issue. Do you? I mean, you're not saying there's a problem.
That's not something that we would be involved in, the flooding.
Okay.
That's
So-
more of a planning issue.
Okay, and we can't go into that. So thank you very much for that. Any more questions? Can I just,
Sorry, just back onto the late night piece of video. I missed. So Mr. Clark was saying that this actually took place in your grounds, but you're saying it was outside at the front by the Leathern Bottle. But Mr. Clark then said it was somewhere in an alleyway or something. Sorry, can somebody just clarify where that actually took place?
Well, I cannot, because I can only allege, because I'm not visibly going over the property line in order to investigate. I am recording the video and audio that is projected from that premises to me, and based on the other 160 videos and the body of evidence, the experience of videoing and collecting from that position, I judged it to be in the alleyway between Sweet Apple House and the Naval Club. I actually have an annotated diagram which shows that piece of land. But I'd also say that that piece of land belongs to someone else and is being developed as we speak. So that may no longer be an area for them to operate in, which will force a hand to some extent and push traffic our way or onto Mead Row itself.
In answer to the video, I'd actually like to watch it again for everyone to listen to. The videos that he's got in the garden, you can clearly hear people talking. The video he's got, they're all shouting, but it's nowhere near as loud as the people talking in the garden. Secondly, if that was on the 5th of April this year, why weren't we told earlier? Because if this had gone off, we could have checked our CCTV and we could have proven it wasn't there, or if it was there, we could have reprimanded people there. But if you listen to the video again, the voices are miles away. You can tell it's right on the road around the corner.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, councillor Gay would like to ask a question.
Yeah, if I may just ask a question, and any of you gentlemen might know the answer to this. There was an incident at the Leathern Bottle quite recently where a car was involved and all sorts of things happened. That wasn't on the 5th of April, was it? No. Okay.
Yes.
Can I just say from the committee member or vice president of the club, and you guys are very local, anything like that happened in our club would have been raised and brought to our committee, which we have on a monthly basis, and nothing was brought to the committee or putting in any of the books that we have in the club where members can put suggestions or where, you know, things that you're not quite comfortable about. It doesn't happen very often. Or in this instance, you know, fighting and things like that. No, it doesn't happen. We would know about it at committee. Just thought I wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Happy with that? Thank you.
As my colleagues just said, there is a down our alleyway. There's another front door that, you know, if it is outside there, could come through. But you can clearly hear that is a long way away. That's not people shouting directly in our garden.
Thank you. Right. Yes.
Going back to the number of tables, which Mr. Clark's corrected us on, and you corrected us, that there are additional 3 tables. Whereabouts are they? I stagger to work out from the diagrams that we've got, is to try and position them.
They are the other side of the garden. There's plant pots there, planters there, big ones, and there's one round the corner in front of a garage, which is our storeroom at the moment. So quite away from the actual garden.
So well away from Mr. Clark's hedge. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, just one more question. Obviously, things changed with clubs and pubs and things when the smoking ban came in. Is that when you first started to put tables outside for people to be able to sit?
Oh, don't think I'm old enough to remember. I assume so. I think we've always had tables outside, but obviously the smoking ban that was a long time ago, so who knows? But yeah, I think they've always been there.
So I have one last question. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to give you my 2 pence really. I mean, firstly, kind of referring it to as a garden. I mean, to me, it's always been a car park. So, and on certain occasions through the year, it would be used for some kind of function. But very rarely would see anybody outside other than that. It completely changed after the COVID lockdown. My understanding was that that was to allow them to have members who weren't allowed to free associate within the club to use to have some space outside. So my understanding was that it was a temporary arrangement, but obviously now it appears to be it's a permanent arrangement. So yeah, I wasn't aware. I think there was some kind of variance, some of the license or something relating to COVID, but yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, that was my understanding anyway at the time. So just that clarify that.
Mr Hughes.
Yeah, just to clarify, you asked me previously about the easements for COVID. It wouldn't have affected the Leathern Bottle as it is because the car park is part of the premises, so that would be classed as an on sale, and the premises also have off sales anyway, and that was for the easement was brought for pubs or, well, yeah, premises licenses that didn't have off sales. So if they had an outside area, a garden sort of like area, like a park or something nearby where they could sell off sales. But it was for people because they couldn't mingle inside the building. They had an outside area and it changed over the period of time, but they have an outside area, which is their car parks on their premises.
Yeah, we've always had the outside area. During COVID, because we couldn't serve inside, we made it look pretty. Basically, we put the AstroTurf down, we put the planters there just to make it look nice. We did add some more tables, but we've recently, we have taken those tables away now. So the only thing that's changed really is it just looks nicer, and we probably have more members.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to, we all attended this committee meeting in January of 2020 to agree the off sales area that was going to be used for specific applications during the year, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, not to be regularly used. We all agreed that. COVID came along and completely changed the landscape. So the fact that we had an area that was specified for operational use on an ad hoc basis, that was where we left it, and suddenly it became, that was the de facto place to go at all times. So I don't actually accept it was the case that they always had an area to go outside, because it was, yes, but by arrangement and application, not all the time.
Mr Hughes, can you enlighten us on that, please?
The plan of the premises is the plan of the premises, and the car park is part of the premises. The building itself is the one that's outlined for the sale of alcohol. Consumption of alcohol is not a licensable activity, it's the sale of alcohol. The sale takes place inside the building, which is marked, but the premises includes the car park and the different coloured areas. And so they're consuming it outside. They're not selling it outside, they're selling it inside.
Thank you. Yes, and then I. Yeah, sure.
Mr Hughes, the gentleman referred to having been in a meeting where it was agreed that a certain area would be used. I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that. Can you explain?
There was a previous hearing a number of years ago, I think, I can't remember when offhand, and the outside area was discussed, and they made different coloured areas that was for smoking. You've got your garage, adjacent properties, the boundary line, area outlined in red for sale and consumption of alcohol and licensable activities, including regulated entertainment. Area hatched in blue for consumption of alcohol only. Area hatched in purple, extent of premises, but not to be used for licensable activities.
And did that have a time limit on it, Mr Hughes?
No, it's just part of the premises. It's just showing what the area was.
Yes, yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, I was actually on that, so I do remember it.
Yeah, but there's no time limit.
No.
No, the time's on the premises license itself. That's just the plan of the premises. All the timings of the premises are on the premises license.
Okay, thank you.
If I can assist there so briefly in respect to that condition, I think you're referring to Councillor Gale. That's on the previous page, page 39. Condition 1, and that's no drinks to be taken or consumed in the outside area after 9. That references the match, so both blue and the purple area. So that's backed up by an enforceable condition. But I entirely agree with Mr Hughes' legal analysis as to the legal status of the difference between the premises and what is and is not allowed.
Thank you. Now, it seems to me that you know, we're in a situation where we've got two sides who don't seem to be, well, you say you're talking, gentlemen say that you aren't. I do wonder, frankly, whether when you recorded all of these evenings, days, whatever, you're close to a fence, a noise, and you've got a microphone very close to a fence, noise can be exacerbated quite greatly, I feel. I stand to be corrected, but you know, I'm sure that that makes it much louder, as we could see. It seems that the Naval Club have tried to work with you in terms of maybe putting a storage container along the fence so that it maybe eradicates some of the noise or softens some of the noise. I don't know whether the Naval Club have considered maybe a piece of baffle fencing along there that they use on roads. I don't know, but certainly, I feel that there's possibly a lot more work to do between the two sides to come together to try to sort out this situation. I understand where you're coming from, that it's very frustrating if you live near to a club or a school or whatever, things can get really on top of you, but equally a club has to have its customers and it has to have its business. So we are where we are. You're offering to put in the container. Are you happy for that container to go in, Mr. Clark?
We haven't had the planning application was put in March. We still haven't got a date of when it's actually going to commit. I don't even know what the status is. I've waited all summer for this because I didn't want to come to committee until we knew what was happening. But that's come, you know, it's been 6 months. We still don't know. So
planning is not something that this committee deals with, so we can only deal with licensing and so on. But hopefully, once, yes.
We've spoken about various things to try and help the neighbours. We wanted to put another fence or a plastic soundproofing against his fence, but we're not allowed to touch the fence. We've been told by Mr. Clark nothing's allowed to go on his fence, so that's been taken out. I spoke to Mr. Clark in the garden for about an hour, and I thought we'd get on very well. About the container, he went and got his measure thing, and I thought you were quite happy with it. I explained to him that we'd put a fence each side so no one could go behind it and use it for a toilet or whatever, afterwards. The container was put there, was our idea to block the noise from his garden. We could all use it as storage as well, because we've only got the little garage, which is basically falling apart. So we could use that for our barrels. It would work, both ways, basically. To me, you sound very happy. The last email I sent you, I gave you my number saying, great to talk today. And we did get on well. But then in the planning application, he's completely slaughtered it. And, hang on, we were doing this for you. But we haven't got the planning permission back yet. We put that in March. We haven't pushed it because, obviously, of this hearing. But
I just want to say you are in no way doing this for me. You're doing it for you. There's absolutely. I'm sorry, but putting the details of the container. Anyway, the planning application is not relevant to this.
No, it is not. I think unless anybody else has anything they would like to add to this meeting, I think we've got to a stage where the three of us will go away with our solicitor and with our officer and talk through how we think this should be sorted. Yes, finally.
Just add one more thing. I think it was August or September last year, Paul Hughes visited and took some CCTV away with him of us people in the garden at 5 past. We had a Brighton trip and we were serving beer out of time because of the gun. So we took the rap for that. At the time, he also checked the CCTV because there had been a complaint about people arguing in our garden with the neighbour, Mr. Clark, and he was attacked and viciously abused. So Paul's looked at the CCTV and he's there at 20 to midnight, whatever. You can see the torchlight coming through the fence. And I think we have got this video. And we've checked the CCTV. There's no one in the garden. There's no one in the car park for an hour before, an hour after. So, and I think he's reported this to the police and he had a police number. So I've said to Mr. Hughes at the time, if this is true, then why has he done this to us? He's lying, surely, because you can see the video. And if he's called the police, surely he's wasted police time as well. And I think we have that. Have we got that video on the stick? I think we have.
Yes, I think we'll have a look at this video and then I think we'll adjourn.
Just on that, Chair, all I can say is whatever video I took that day has been sent. So if it's on there, it should be.
There should be 3 videos or 4 videos, one of us serving out of time and people in the garden, and there should be a 4th one of the torchlight coming through the fence. So we took videos obviously forward and back basically, so there's no one in there. I think he went 15 minutes back and 15 minutes after. And there was no one in the car park and no one in the garden. So if you go forward. No, but I think the incident was something like 11:42, something around that. But you'll see the torchlight coming through the fence. So that video showing no one in the car park or no one arguing with him. There's another video of the other side of the actual garden.
Who are these people?
There we are, we're on 11:40 now.
Are these just members?
Yeah, they've obviously just gone out for a cigarette, but obviously they're not arguing and shouting with him. This is 11:40. This is 11:40 or 11:48. I can't remember the exact time. It's 11:40 something. But the video in the garden, when you see the next video, so you see this. There's just 2 people standing there. You can see they're not particularly making a lot of noise, are they? And then there's another video that Paul took of the actual garden at the same time, and you can see the torchlight going through, and that's when he's reported to the police that he was being abused, and it's clearly not true.
You can't see the garden from there. It's pointing the other way.
See how the garden used to be.
Yes.
One that's quite dark.
Yeah.
It's 11:45.
11:35. Yes.
35.
So you see, there's nobody. Well, if you look at this, nobody done this particular time. We've already seen the car park. There's nobody done. It's actually got a police crime number. It's reported to the police by Mr. Clark about abuse he was getting from, so this is it, this is what he was getting. And just to say, if every was abused or anyone's abused, we do ban people as a members club. We won't have it, and everyone knows that as well.
I'd just like to say I have a video from the other side at the same time that shows, obviously, I cannot see the other side, but there's clearly people in here.
Oi!
That's me.
Can you go inside, please? I'm trying to get a fucking seat.
Excuse the language. 2335. So there was someone there, and I don't know. We're showing two. Well, it's not a ghost.
I'm sorry, was that submitted?
Sorry.
No, because
We
I
can't-
wasn't.
Was that video submitted prior to the hearing?
We cannot look at that because you
Yes.
did not submit it to this hearing. and
Sorry.
so-
Okay, that I'm trying. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if is there anything else?
Hang on. Do you want it? You go.
No, I don't think there's anything else, is there?
Oh, I thought you did.
I don't really need to raise this. Or do we just-
Thank you very much. My representation here is just as a member of the club. I've got no official capacity whatsoever. And I don't want to vilify anybody in any way, shape or form, because ultimately I believe we can work with our neighbours, and we've tried to work with our neighbours. I have witnessed water coming over the top of the hedge, as we've said. If it's not purposeful, it's very, very clumsy, water in the top of your hedge in the middle of summer when people are in the garden. But I'm not going to make any accusations about that. I've witnessed loud music coming from next door. I quite actually like his choice of music. I think that some of his piano concertos are very entertaining. But I do feel sorry for his neighbours. And I have witnessed the gentleman starting discourse with members. He tells members are talking to themselves. They're not interested in the gentleman, but I have heard some rather fruity language when there've been children around. I'm proud to be a member of the Naval Club. It's a very good club. It does an awful lot for the local community. And I just hope that we can get this sorted out. And I think that if we work together, that'd be great. But it does need a little bit of consensus. We're trying to put measures in place. We're trying to put barriers so that people aren't disturbed. We don't want unhappy neighbours, but I'm just a member and that's my view. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's very well put. Thank you very much indeed. So I think we've well aired this. I think everybody's had a chance to say what they feel, and we will now retire and discuss together. And yes.
Sorry, Councillor Gein. Did you want to hear from Environmental Health, who've had some involvement? Okay, Alice has been the case officer.
I've prepared a brief statement for today, some of which is probably within the report, so you'll be aware of it already. But so just to say that Environmental Health have been investigating complaints of noise and other activities at the Naval Club for the past few years. The Naval Club is situated in close proximity to neighbouring dwellings. As you know, a summary of our involvement shown in a table in my report. I've carried out 4 visits to the club in the last few months and have not witnessed excessive noise on any of these occasions. These visits were all carried out at different times of the day, including a sunny afternoon and evenings, including a time when they had live music playing, and no problems were encountered. From my initial involvement with the Naval Club up until now, I'd just like to say that Mark Adams, the DPS, has always been incredibly willing to cooperate and try and resolve any issues that have been brought to my attention. An issue has been raised surrounding Biffa that you mentioned earlier. And I have also contacted Biffa to ask them not to collect prior to 6 o'clock in the morning. However, we can't require that collections are later than this time because the council start their own collections at 6 o'clock in the morning. So as you're aware of that. Whilst we have not confirmed any activities from the club are causing a public or statutory nuisance, they do have the potential on occasion perhaps to have an impact on the neighbours. We can recognise that there is the potential for some impact. So to promote the prevention of public nuisance, I recommend consideration be given to adding, detailed in my report, the conditions on the licence to the current operating schedule. These are in line with what was agreed in August 2022, but they are slightly more restrictive in terms of saying that we recommend that we just have 8 people using the garden at one time, and there's a few other things as well. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for coming this morning. We have got your conditions and obviously we'll discuss those at the same time. Thank you very much indeed.
Chair, very briefly before you adjourn, just so now that the conditions have been put into question, if I could just ask, please, your permission to allow Mr. Adams to comment on the first 2 of those conditions. They're on page 4950. Number 3 and 4 are obviously not problematic in any way, and it's very helpful to hear environmental health confirmation of our winning approach. But number 1 and 2, if Mr. Adams could just comment on those conditions from an operational perspective.
Yeah, the condition for 1 is non-smoking in the garden outside, which would be almost impossible to police. The tables are currently 4 meters from the fence, and as you can see, the fence is there. He's got a big hedge as well, and to the garden. So yeah, the smoking would be almost impossible. You know, unless we were out there all the time, you can't stop people smoking outside, I don't think. In issue of 8 people in the garden, the 2 tables hold 8 people each. Whereas we agree that would be a bit tight, 8 people on each, and we'd be willing to compromise and go to 12 people in the garden at one time, which we could easily police and ensure we could do basically. And sorry, yes, I don't know, but yeah. So we would actually go for cut it down to 12 people in the garden if that's acceptable.
Are we all here? Are we waiting for this gentleman? No, okay. Right, thank you everybody for attending this morning. Having heard all the evidence from both sides and taken into account the environmental health and licensing officers' visits, the committee are satisfied that the current licensing conditions operating schedule be sufficient to satisfy the licensing objectives. As suggested by the environmental health, we support conditions 3 and 4 to be added to the licence, and the addition of no tables or chairs to be placed immediately against the boundary fence. 1 and 2 of the conditions as they stand, we do not feel are viable. Therefore, that is the conclusion that we've met. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.